Welcome everyone, we have another box opening today, and it's actually a box that I've never owned before. So we're going to break that at the end of this video, but before I get into that, I want to admit that I've made a grave mistake. In my last video where I went over the boxes I was selling for my theme deck buyer, who is looking to play those theme decks from a bunch of different theme deck displays with his wife and relive the old days and teach her Magic using the old theme decks, I forgot to put one of the boxes in front. And it's another box he's buying, and not only did I forget to show the box, it is my all-time favorite set. So, I was playing back around this time, and I'll just share it with you. Odyssey. My favorite set of all time. You know, it's just the nostalgia of it. They had a particular card. I'll show the rest of that, but I want to go over this. It had Psychotog. So those that remember playing in this time remember the Psychotog deck. It was a very interesting deck where it's a control deck, which is interesting because I now kind of favor aggro, but back in the day, I played control and I played Psychotog, and it dealt with a bunch of counter spells, removal, all that sort of stuff, like normal control decks do. But at the very end, you would play a card called Upheaval, which I don't have. What was it? 4 blue, return all permanents to owner's hand. So that includes not only creatures, artifacts, enchantments, but even lands. So it effectively would restart the game, all going to your hand, and you would pay, instead of the 6 mana, you'd actually get to 9 mana. You'd float the 3 for Psychotog. You then put Psychotog onto the battlefield after playing your Upheaval, and now it's the only thing on the board. Let's get that in focus. It's the only thing on the board, and you have a hand full of tons of cards. You can discard a card from your hand and give it +1/+1, and you can remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game, and it also gets +1/+1. So essentially, you could restart the game, have this one creature on the battlefield, and be able to make it really giant, attack on in for a win. So, it was a fun deck. It's what kind of got me into competitive Magic. It was my very first Friday Night Magic. I played a Psychotog deck, and it's all thanks to Odyssey. Now, this is my first theme deck box of Odyssey that I've ever owned. But my very first purchase as what I would consider a Magic collector was a booster box of Odyssey. Now, I no longer have any booster boxes of Odyssey because I think this is not just my favorite set, but it's a lot of people's favorite set, and it's hard to keep them in stock. They go very quickly and sell quickly. They're also hard to find. Now, don't get me wrong, if you have a favorite set that you want to keep, you know, I don't recommend, you know, just going and selling them. So, and actually, I almost regret it. That first box I bought was owned by one of the artists, originally. I even have like an artist stamp and all that. So, you know, it was kind of a special box, but I was getting into investing and collecting and, you know, wanted to, you know, make a early sale. So I did go ahead and sell it, but I'll buy more. But yes, Odyssey, I'm not selling my individual cards. I have Psychotog as just a reminder of one of my favorite decks from back in the day. Yeah, in fact, another one from the Judgment block, I'll just show it because this is another one of my favorite cards during my competitive days. Anorid Brushhopper. A very similar concept of the whole madness idea of discarding cards and playing them for cheaper. This was a pretty strong card. You see, it's a rare back in the day. Of a 3-mana 3/4 was overpowered to begin with, and then you could also blink it just by discarding 2 cards. And back in the day, with madness, discarding was actually an advantage, not a disadvantage, because you can still play the cards when you discarded them. Anyways, just showing some of my memories, and my favorite set, and I forgot to mention it. So, this is going to that lucky buyer as well. And maybe I'll put a picture of my very first Odyssey booster box I ever owned. because I have a picture of the certificate and everything that came from the original artist collection. I think he was gifted that box when he submitted his art. So yeah, I'll put that up on the screen here. I wanted to share that. And now for the opening, I'll give a little teaser before I open. I've never owned one of these boxes before, at least not the booster box version. It is a booster box. And it's a booster box of the very first core set that had foils. Not the first block, the first core set that had foils. It's not considered a very powerful set, frankly, but I find that it's very hard to find. I'd say even harder than favored blocks like Odyssey. That's why I've never owned one before. I've owned multiple Odyssey booster boxes, but never one of these. Alright, this will be interesting to get out. I think I'm going to have to dump it over. Packaged well. Yeah, packaged very well. Hopefully there's no addresses or anything on here. Since we went into the cards, in the meantime, I don't have the original version, but one of my favorite cards, not of this set, but of this block, Tangle Wire. Loved, again, I guess I must have been a Control fan back in the day, because Tangle Wire was a really good card to control. And there we go! Mercadian Masks booster box. Beautiful. In our graded power box. Not a box of the right size for it. That's okay. Yeah. The guy who owns Graded Power is one of my friends who I sold a bunch of 6th edition to. He did not sell me this box, but he produces these acrylic boxes. I highly recommend them. Great for collectors. And yeah, that is the Mercadian Mask booster box. And I'll get to add that to my collection and finally say I've bought one before. I've probably held one before from back when I was playing, but I've never owned one because when I was playing that, I was a kid and I could not afford to buy boxes, although they were a lot cheaper than they are now. So, but yeah, I thought it was a fine set. I mean, it was underpowered, especially coming right after the Urza Saga block, like the most overpowered block of all time. But it was a fine set. I don't know if they're planning on ever going back to Mercadia, to that plane, but you know, it had things like Tangle Wire in the block, not in the set. You know, so anyway, it has a lot of nostalgia to me. I'm glad I got one. That's all for today. Won't bring this out too long. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.